A quiet artist marries into a family that sees her as nothing more than a pretty, penniless decoration. They mock her talent, they isolate her, and they try to break her spirit, demanding she use non-existent connections to save their failing reputation. But they made one fatal mistake. They never asked her what her father did for a living. They never questioned why she was so quiet about her past. By the time they found out, their entire world was already in ashes. This is the story of Chloe Sullivan, and the staggering price the Peterson family paid for underestimating her. The Peterson family home in Greenwich, Connecticut, wasn't just a house. It was a statement. It was a sprawling, new money, Georgian monstrosity of beige stone and towering white columns, a desperate attempt to scream old money that only whispered insecure. This was the arena for the mandatory Sunday dinner and for Chloe Sullivan. Now Chloe Peterson, it was a weekly ordeal. Chloe was a painter. Chloe was not a hobbyist, but a true soul-driven artist. She saw the world in light and shadow, in textures and hues that others missed. She had a small but growing reputation in the Soho gallery scene, a fact she was proud of, but rarely mentioned. Her art was her own, a space sacred and untouched by the suffocating influence of her new family. She had fallen in love with Ryan Peterson, the golden boy of the family, in a New York coffee shop. He seemed different. He was a mid-level analyst at a respectable finance firm, seemingly unbothered by her paint-stained jeans and her modest studio apartment. He'd claimed to love her quiet strength, her creativity, her detachment from the shallow world he came from. Their first year of marriage had been a whirlwind of genuine affection, cocooned in their own downtown apartment, far from the reach of his family. But now, 6 months after moving closer to Greenwich, to be there for the family, that cocoon was unraveling. "Chloe, darling." Margaret Peterson cooed, her voice a weapon wrapped in velvet. She was a tall, unnervingly thin woman, draped in a cashmere twin set that probably cost more than Chloe's art sales for the entire year. "I do hope you're not tracking turpentine onto my antique Persian rug. We all know how messy your little projects can get." Chloe forced a smile, tucking her feet beneath her chair. "I was in the studio this morning, Margaret, but I changed. Nothing to worry about." "Good, good." Margaret turned her attention to her son. "Ryan, your father, and I are so looking forward to the Willow Creek Children's Fund Gala. It's my biggest event of the year. We've secured a state senator and, well, let's just say a very prominent real estate developer. Arthur Peterson, a man whose personality seemed to have been blanched out by his wife's nodded vigorously from the head of the table. Top-tier Maggie, as always. Arthur ran Peterson Homes, a regional construction company that built the exact kind of beige mansions they were currently sitting in. He considered himself a titan of industry. "Brenda, of course, will be helping me," Margaret continued, gesturing to her daughter. Brenda Peterson, the 26, was a carbon copy of her mother, just with a smartphone permanently attached to her hand and a popular vapid influencer account. "I'm so stressed about my dress, Mum," Brenda whined, tapping at her phone. "The boutique only has the Valentino in rose, not blush. It's a complete disaster." "We will sort it out, darling," Margaret soothed. She then fixed her gaze on Chloe, a performative, condescending smile playing on her lips. "Chloe, you'll be coming, of course, as Ryan's wife. We've managed to get you a ticket. They are very expensive." The implication hung in the air, thick and toxic. "You are lucky to be included." "I'm looking forward to it," Chloe said, her voice even. "Wonderful." Margaret clapped her hands. Now, Ryan, about your father's business. We have a small, tiny legal issue we're dealing with. Some disgruntled client claiming our materials weren't up to code. Utterly frivolous, of course. Arthur shifted. Just a shakedown, Maggie. Nothing to worry about. But Chloe, the quiet observer, saw the tremor in his hand as he reached for his wine glass. She saw the way Ryan's smile became fixed, his eyes avoiding hers. She saw the first hairline crack in the foundation of Peterson Homes. The rest of the dinner was a blur of passive aggression. Brenda complained about the slow service of the hired help. Margaret dissected the outfit of another woman on her charity board. Arthur boasted about a housing development that hadn't yet broken ground. And Ryan said nothing. He just sat there, the perfect, dutiful son, nodding and smiling, casting occasional nervous glances at Chloe, as if to say, "Just bear with it. Just for a little longer." As they drove home, the silence in their Audi was heavier than the stone columns of his parents' house. "Your mother was in fine form tonight," Chloe finally said, her voice quiet. Ryan sighed, loosening his tie. "That's just how she is, Chloe. She's stressed about the gala. And this lawsuit, it's a nuisance." She said it was frivolous. "It is. Of course it is. Dad builds the best homes in Connecticut." He reached over and patted her knee, a gesture that was meant to be reassuring, but felt dismissive. "Don't worry about it. Just, for the gala, maybe we could, I don't know, buy you a really stunning dress. Something to, fit in." Chloe turned to look out the window, watching the dark, manicured lawns of Greenwich fly by. "Fit in," she repeated. It wasn't a question. It was a realization. "I just want them to see what I see," Ryan said, his voice pleading. But Chloe knew what they saw. They saw a girl with no name, no money, and no connections, a worthless hobbyist who had somehow tricked their golden boy. And the worst part, the horrible sinking feeling in her stomach, was that her husband, the man she loved, was beginning to see her that way too. The gilded cage was shrinking, and she was starting to suffocate. The Willow Creek Children's Fund Gala was Margaret Peterson's personal Super Bowl. It was held at the local country club, a bastion of old-world exclusivity that Margaret had fought for years to infiltrate. The theme chosen by her was a night of shining stars. Chloe had tried. She truly had. She'd bought a simple, elegant midnight blue gown. It was understated, but the silk was high quality, and it fit her perfectly. She felt good in it. She even did her hair in a soft chignon, revealing the delicate line of her neck. When Ryan saw her, his eyes widened. "Wow, Chloe, you look incredible." The brief surge of confidence lasted until the exact moment they stepped onto the club's gold carpet and were greeted by Margaret, who was swathed in a feathered, champagne-colored monstrosity. Margaret's eyes swept over Chloe, a fractional, almost invisible sneer. "Chloe, you came, and you're wearing blue." "It's a beautiful color, Mom," Ryan said, stepping in. "Yes, well, very safe," Margaret said, turning away to greet the arriving state senator. "Come, Ryan, you must say hello." Chloe was left standing alone, an ornament whose purpose had been served. She felt a familiar sting, but pushed it down. She wasn't here for Margaret. She was here to support Ryan and a children's charity. But Margaret had a plan, and it involved more than just a backhanded compliment. Part of the gala was a silent auction. Margaret had graciously allowed Chloe to contribute. "A small piece, darling," she'd said. "Something your people can afford." Chloe had instead poured her heart into a piece. It was a 24 by 24 canvas, a stunning abstract piece titled Greenwich Dusk. It was a chaotic, beautiful swirl of deep indigos, purples and golds, capturing the exact fleeting moment the sun died behind the dark hills. It was, in her professional opinion, some of her best work. She'd had it framed beautifully, a simple, elegant black floater frame. She found the auction tables, and her heart stopped. There, nestled between a gift basket of artisanal jams and a signed golf glove from the local pro, was her painting. But that wasn't the worst part. The small typed description card read, "A dark mess, donated by Chloe Peterson." A hobbyist's painting of something. Perhaps a storm starting bid. 50. Chloe felt the blood drain from her face. A dark mess. Hobbyist, $50. A framed print at a home goods store would cost more. She touched the card, her fingers trembling. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a typo. This was a message, cruel and deliberate. "Find something you like, sis." Brenda's saccharine voice cut through her shock. Brenda was glittering in her rose Valentino, a glass of champagne in hand. You wrote this," Chloe whispered, unable to look away from the insulting card. "Wrote what?" Brenda feigned innocence, peering at the card. "Oh, that God, isn't it hilarious? Mom and I were trying to figure out what it was. We figured $50 was generous, honestly. I mean, who would hang that in their house?" Tears pricked at Chloe's eyes, hot and angry. "I spent a month on that painting, Brenda." "A month?" Brenda laughed, a high, sharp sound. "Oh, honey, that's just sad. Don't worry. Maybe one of the kitchen staff will buy it as a joke." Chloe turned and walked away. She didn't run. Her movements were stiff, robotic. She pushed through the glittering crowd, ignoring the superficial smiles and the clinking glasses. She found Ryan, who was deep in conversation with his father, and another man. "Ryan," she said, her voice tight. He turned, annoyed at the interruption. "Chloe, not now. This is Mr. Henderson from Crestview Financial. He's the one who—" "Ryan, look." She thrust the small, insulting card into his hand. He read it. His face paled, then flushed with, was it anger or embarrassment? "What is this?" he muttered. "Your sister, your mother. They did this. They're humiliating me." Ryan looked from the card to his father, who was watching with a frown. He looked at Mr. Henderson, the banker. He looked back at Chloe, and his expression was one she would never forget. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't angry on her behalf. It was pitying. "Chloe, come on," he hissed, pulling her aside. It's a joke, a stupid, mean joke, okay, but you're making a scene." "A joke, Ryan. They called my work a dark mess. They priced it at $50. So what? It's just a painting," he snapped, his voice low and urgent. "This is important. My dad is trying to secure a new line of credit from Henderson. This lawsuit is bigger than they said. We need this, and you're over here crying about a hobby." The word hit her like a physical blow. Hobby. The same word Margaret used. "It's not a hobby," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "Whatever, Chloe, it's not a job. It doesn't pay the bills. Now please, just go, fix your makeup. Go sit down. Don't ruin this for my family." "Don't ruin this for my family?" "Not our family. His family." Chloe looked at the man she thought she knew, this stranger in a tuxedo who was prioritizing a line of credit over her dignity. She looked at the insulting card still clutched in her hand. "Okay," she said. The word was flat, devoid of all emotion. "Okay. Good. Good." Ryan gave her shoulder a squeeze and immediately turned back to the banker, a charming smile plastered on his face. Chloe turned. She walked past the auction table, past the artisanal jams, and past her masterpiece. She walked out of the ballroom, through the gilded lobby, and into the cold, damp Connecticut night. She didn't have her coat. She didn't have her purse. But she had her phone. She walked, her heels sinking into the soft grass until she was out of sight of the valet. She sat on a cold stone bench, the moon obscured by clouds, and she made a call. Not to a friend, not to an Uber. She scrolled through her contacts past all the P entries to a name she rarely ever called, a name that was connected to a different world, a world of cold, hard power she had tried to escape. The phone rang once. Twice, a crisp, professional voice answered a voice with a faint British accent that she'd known all her life. "Graves. Graves," Chloe said, her voice trembling, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. "It's me. I need to speak to my father." There was a moment of absolute silence on the other end of the line. Mr. Graves, or as Chloe had always known him, Graves, was her father's chief of staff, his right hand, his fixer. He was a man who operated with the precision of a surgeon and the emotional warmth of a block of ice. "Ms. Sullivan," he said, his voice softening by a single, almost imperceptible degree. "Are you in danger?" "No," Chloe whispered. Not physical danger. I'm at the Greenwich Country Club. I need to talk to him. Is he available?" "He is in a board meeting in Singapore, but for you he is always available. Hold one moment." Chloe listened to the faint, digitized click of a secure, multi-continental patch-through. She pulled her knees to her chest, shivering on the stone bench. The muffled sounds of the gala, the music, the laughter seemed to be coming from a different planet. Then a new voice, deep, clear, and carrying an authority that could quiet boardrooms and command armies of lawyers. "Chloe, what's wrong?" "Dad!" she sobbed, and the dam broke. The composure she had maintained for months, the polite smiles, the forced tolerance, it all shattered. "Dad, I made a mistake. I'm so stupid. They hate me. He doesn't love me. He called it a hobby." Nathaniel Sullivan listened. He was a man who built empires, the CEO and founder of Ethelred Global, a logistics and technology conglomerate so vast its tentacles reached into shipping data, mining, private security, and banking. He was a man who hadn't raised his daughter to be useful to a small-time construction heir. He had raised her to be his heir until she'd run away from it all to paint. A move he had, to his own surprise, respected. He listened to her tell the story. The Sunday dinners, the frivolous lawsuit, the charity gala, the insulting card, and finally the ultimate betrayal, Ryan's words. "Don't ruin this for my family." When she was finished, there was a long pause. Chloe worried she had bored him or that he was angry, but the voice that came back was not angry. It was cold. It was the voice he used when an executive had lost him $1 billion. This man, this banker, Mr. Henderson from Crestview Financial. He is there now. "Yes, Dad." Ryan said they needed a new line of credit. "I see." Another pause. "Graves, are you on the line?" "Yes, sir." Graves's voice reappeared. "Get me Robert Harrison at Crestview. I don't care what time it is. and get our internal audit team to look at Peterson Homes. I want to know everything, their suppliers, their debts, their contracts, and the exact nature of this lawsuit. And Graves, sir, get me a car to the Greenwich Country Club, now, and find out where my daughter's painting is. I want it. Of course, sir. The car will be there in 15 minutes. Chloe. Her father's voice was gentle again. The car is a black Mercedes Maybach. The driver knows your name. It will take you to your apartment. Lock the door. Do not answer any calls from Ryan or his family. I will be in New York in 36 hours. We will handle this. Dad, what are you? I am handling it, he said. And the line went dead. Chloe sat stunned, her tears drying in the cold air. She had just set something in motion. She wasn't sure what, but the sheer, effortless power in her father's voice was both terrifying and, in that moment, a profound relief. She saw the headlights before the car, even turned into the drive. The Maybach was silent, pulling up to the curb. A driver in a dark suit got out. Miss Sullivan, please, it's cold. She got in. The car was a fortress of leather and silence. As they pulled away, her phone buzzed. It was Ryan. She ignored it. It buzzed again. Ryan. Then a text. Where are you? People are noticing. You're embarrassing me. She turned the phone. Meanwhile, back at the gala, Ryan was sweating. Chloe had been gone for 20 minutes. Mr. Henderson, the banker, was looking at his watch. Your wife? She seemed upset, Henderson asked, sipping his water. Oh, just a small misunderstanding. You know how artists are. So emotional. Ryan tried to laugh it off. Just then, Henderson's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, and then his eyes went wide. He looked at the caller ID, his face draining of color. Excuse me, he said, his voice suddenly hoarse. I must take this. He walked to a secluded corner, his back to the room. Arthur and Ryan watched him. He looks like he's seen a ghost, Arthur muttered, gnawing on a sausage roll. Henderson's side of the conversation was frantic and mostly one-sided. Yes, sir. No, sir. I had no idea, sir. Of course. I'm at the Willow Creek Gala. Yes, Mr. Sullivan. I'm looking at him right now. No, of course not. Absolutely. My apologies, sir. It will be rectified. Henderson hung up. He looked shaken. He walked back to Arthur and Ryan, his demeanor completely changed. The friendly banker was gone. Mr. Peterson, Henderson said, his voice stiff. Regarding your application for an extended line of credit, Crestview has decided to decline. Furthermore, we will be calling in your existing loan. The full balance is due in 30 days. Our legal team will be in touch on Monday. Arthur's glass dropped from his hand, shattering on the floor. What? You can't. We've been with Crestview for 20 years. 30 days, Ryan yelped. That's impossible. We'll be ruined. Henderson just looked at Ryan, a strange mix of terror and disgust on his face. Rethink your life, son, he muttered. He then looked around the room, spotted Margaret, and walked over to her. Margaret, a word. Robert'll. So glad you. I am resigning from the board of this fund, effective immediately. And I am withdrawing Crestview's sponsorship. But why? Henderson leaned in. Do you have any idea who Chloe Sullivan is? Who you mean, Ryan's wife? Margaret said, confused. Her name, you fool, Henderson hissed. Her maiden name, Sullivan. as in Nathaniel Sullivan, as in Ethelred Global. Your son married Nathaniel Sullivan's daughter, and you insulted her." Margaret's blood ran cold. Ethelred Global. The name was whispered in places like this. A company that owned, well, everything. That's not possible," she stammered. She's nobody. She's the heir to a $50 billion empire," Henderson said, his voice trembling with rage. "And you let your bratty daughter write a dark mess on her painting. I just got off the phone with Nathaniel Sullivan himself. He's displeased. You people are done. You're radioactive." Henderson turned and fled the gala, leaving Margaret standing frozen, the color gone from her face. At the same time, two men in dark, impeccably tailored suits entered the auction room. They walked to Chloe's painting. One of them placed a small laminated card on the table, sold. The other handed a bewildered auction volunteer a black credit card. How much should I run it for?" the volunteer asked. The man who Chloe would have recognized as Graves didn't even look at the painting. "The bidding starts at $50, I believe," he said, his voice placid. "Let's make the final bid. $5 million for the Willow Creek Children's Fund. Mr. Sullivan sends his compliments." The entire room went silent. The news spread through the gala like a shock wave passing from table to table. $5 million for that painting from Nathaniel Sullivan. Ryan and Arthur, reeling from the news from the bank, heard the gasp from the crowd. They saw Margaret White as a sheet stumble toward them. "Arthur, Ryan," she whispered, her voice cracking. "We have a problem." A very, very big problem." Ryan's phone buzzed. It was a text from Chloe's number, but it wasn't from Chloe. "Mr. Peterson, this is Graves from Mr. Sullivan's office. Please inform your family that all contact with Ms. Sullivan is to cease immediately. Our divorce attorneys will be in touch on Monday to discuss an equitable dissolution of the marriage. Any attempt to contest this will be ill-advised. Good evening." Ryan read the text. He read it again. And finally the full catastrophic weight of what they had done crashed down upon him. He hadn't just insulted his wife. He had insulted the daughter of a Megacorp. And that Megacorp was now turning its full, undivided and terrifying attention directly on them. Chloe slept for 12 hours in her old pre-Ryan apartment, a high-security Soho loft her father had bought her years ago, which she'd kept just in case. When she awoke, the city was bustling below, but her world was still. For the first time in months, she didn't feel the low-grade hum of anxiety that had become her constant companion. She felt empty. But it was a clean, quiet kind of empty. A blank canvas. She spent the day in a daze, wrapped in a blanket, drinking tea. She didn't check the news. She didn't turn on her phone. She had no idea that 30,000 feet over the Pacific, her father was methodically and with chilling precision dismantling the Peterson family. Nathaniel Sullivan didn't operate with bombs. He used scalpels. He didn't believe in messy, emotional revenge. He believed in consequences. The first call to the banker, Robert Henderson, had been the warning shot. It was a simple display of power. "You will not be giving this family my money," he had told Henderson, "and you will tell them why." The $5 million bid for the painting was the second. It wasn't just a donation. It was a price tag. It was Nathaniel Sullivan, publicly declaring the worth of the very thing the Petersons had called worthless. It was a message to the entire Greenwich social scene. You mocked her, but I value her at $5 million. Pick a side, but that was just the opening act. While his jet refueled in Anchorage, Nathaniel and his team got to work. The report from his internal audit team on Peterson Homes was on his tablet. It was not good for Arthur Peterson. "Graves, what am I looking at?" Nathaniel said, his voice flat. "Sir Peterson Homes is a house of cards. The lawsuit Mrs. Peterson mentioned, it's not one disgruntled client. It's 8. A class action suit is being prepared. They've been cutting corners for years. Substandard Chinese drywall, faulty wiring foundation, concrete that wasn't properly cured. The man hasn't just been building McMansions, he's been building liabilities." "Suppliers," Nathaniel said, swiping through the report. "He's leveraged to the hilt. His main supplier for lumber and finishing materials is a company called Apex Building Supplies." "Do we own them?" Nathaniel asked. "No, sir, but we own the logistics company that handles 100% of their North American shipping. And, as of last quarter, Ethelred Capital holds the note on their business loan." Nathaniel smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Call the CEO of Apex. Inform him that Ethelred Logistics is restructuring our shipping contracts, and Ethelred Capital is concerned about his exposure to a high-risk client like Peterson Homes. Suggest, strongly, that he sever ties." "Yes, sir. And the bank, Crestview, was the first cut. Now the rest. I see he has loans with 3 other regional banks. I want Ethelred to buy that debt. All of it. By market close on Monday. I want to be the only one Arthur Peterson owes money to." "It will be done, sir." The team worked through the night. By the time Nathaniel's jet touched down at Teterboro Airport, the pieces were in place. On Monday morning, Arthur Peterson was in a full-blown panic. The 30-day call on his Crestview loan was a death sentence. He'd spent all of Sunday calling other banks trying to secure a new loan to cover it. Every single one had turned him down flat. "Too risky," they said. "Poor credit outlook." He arrived at his office determined to find a way out, only to be greeted by his frantic operations manager. "Arthur, you need to see this Apex just terminated our contract. Cancelled all outstanding deliveries." "What they can't. We have a contract. They're invoking Clause 7B, non-payment and client financial instability. They say our credit is no good. Arthur, we have 3 houses in framing that need lumber today. We're dead in the water." As Arthur was screaming at his manager, his phone rang. It was another bank. "Mr. Peterson, we're calling to inform you that your business loan has been sold. We'll no longer be servicing it." Sold to who?" "A private holding company, sir. Ethelred Capital Management." Arthur had never heard of it. But the name, Ethelred, it tickled something in the back of his mind. Something from the gala. Then the final blow. An investigative reporter from the Wall Street Journal called. "Mr. Peterson, I'm doing a story on construction standards in high-net-worth communities. I've received a rather extensive file regarding 8 families suing you for using toxic substandard drywall. The file includes internal memos, a cost-saving initiative that seem to confirm this was a deliberate choice. Would you care to comment?" Arthur dropped the phone. Internal memos. How his entire business, his self-made empire, was evaporating in a matter of hours. The suppliers were gone. The credit was gone. And now the press was at the door, holding the smoking gun. He stumbled out of his office, his face ashen. He was a ruined man. But Nathaniel Sullivan wasn't done. He hadn't just been attacked on the business front. His daughter had been attacked on the personal and social front. and that meant he had to deal with Margaret and Brenda. While Arthur Peterson's professional life was being systematically exsanguinated, Margaret Peterson was engaged in her own desperate form of damage control. The $5 million donation had been the talk of the state. It had in one stroke made the Willow Creek Fund the most successful small market charity in the country, and made Margaret a pariah. She had been politely asked to resign from the board. "It's the conflict of interest, Margaret," her co-chair, a woman named Bitsy, had told her over the phone. "We simply can't have the mother-in-law of the primary donor on the board. It looks improper." "Improper? I built this fund," Margaret had shrieked. "Yes, well, and now Mr. Sullivan's donation will build a new wing. His foundation has taken an interest in our operations. They've sent a transition team." Margaret was out. In her own world, at her own event, she had been usurped. But it was about to get so much worse. Nathaniel Sullivan's team didn't just look at Peterson Homes. They looked at the whole family, and Margaret, in her arrogance, had left a trail. Graves had presented the file to Nathaniel. "The Willow Creek Children's Fund, sir. It appears Mrs. Peterson has been indiscreet with the accounting." "Stealing?" Nathaniel asked. "More creative billing," Graves said. "She's been billing the fund for, well, everything. Her dresses for the gala, her hairdresser, the catering for her private, non-charity-related parties. She's been using the donation account as her personal slush fund for years. It's not a lot, in our terms. Perhaps $80,000 a year. But to the IRS, it's wire fraud." "Leak it," Nathaniel said. "Anonymously. Not to the Journal. Give it to a local hungry blogger, someone who wants to make a name for themselves, and send the file to the other now former board members. Let them be the ones to file the police report." The chosen blogger was a local Greenwich gossip columnist who ran a site called Greenwich Gavel. The story dropped on Tuesday. Local socialite Margaret Peterson accused of skimming from children's charity. The story included scanned receipts, invoices from designer boutiques, bills from country club bars, all paid for by the Children's Fund. It was meticulous. It was undeniable. The same friends who had whispered about the $5 million donation were now openly calling for her head. Bitsy, the co-chair, led the charge to the police. By noon on Tuesday, Margaret Peterson, Queen of Greenwich Society, was being asked to come downtown to answer a few questions. Her social life wasn't just over. It was spectacularly incinerated. That left Brenda. Brenda Peterson was in the grand scheme of things small time. An influencer with 80,000 followers, most of them bought. She made her money by promoting diet teas, cheap fast fashion, and local spray tan salons. "This one seems, beneath you, sir," Graves had noted. "She called my daughter's art sad," Nathaniel said, not looking up from his work. "She's not beneath me. Expose her." Brenda's vice was simple. She was a fraud. Her entire online life was a meticulously crafted lie. The photos of her on a yacht in Mykonos were taken at the local marina, on someone else's boat. The vegan, gluten-free meals she promoted were immediately followed by trips to fast food drive-thrus, which she paid for with a credit card, in her father's name. But her real sin, the one that would break her, was her charity work. She had recently partnered with a small, obscure animal shelter. She'd run a fundraiser on her Instagram page, asking her followers to donate. Graves' team found the money trail, or rather the lack of one. "She raised $15,000, sir," Graves reported. The shelter received a single check for $500. The rest appears to have been spent at the Valentino boutique and a weekend trip to Miami. Tisk, tisk, Nathaniel said. That's not just fraud. That's tacky. Leak it, all of it, to the same blogger. And make sure the animal shelter's legal team gets a copy. And the IRS. And send a list of her sponsors to a watchdog account. Let them know who they're in business with. The Greenwich Gavel had its second blockbuster story in as many days. From charity to Valentino influencer Brenda Peterson's animal shelter scam. The fallout was instantaneous and digital. Her follower count, which she checked every minute, began to plummet. The comments section, once filled with heart emojis, was now a torrent of snake emojis and pure, unadulterated vitriol. Thief, I donated $100 to you. I want my money back, giving back the dress, or... Her sponsors dropped her in a wave. The Diet Tea Company sent a cease and desist. The spray tan salon put her picture up in the window with "Banned" written on it. By Wednesday morning, the Peterson family was in total ruin. Arthur Business foreclosed, under investigation by the WSJ and the State Attorney General. Personally bankrupt. Margaret arrested, out on bail, facing charges of fraud and embezzlement, kicked out of every social club in the state. Brenda publicly shamed, under investigation for fraud, lost her career and her credibility, and was now the most hated person in the local internet sphere. The three of them sat in the kitchen of their beige McMansion, which now had a "For Sale by Bank" sign hammered into the front lawn. The custom-hired help was gone. The electricity was scheduled to be turned off on Friday. They sat in a stunned, hateful silence. And in that silence, Ryan Peterson, the golden boy, the man who had started it all, finally truly understood what he had done. His family's name. The name he had been so desperate to protect was now synonymous with failure, fraud, and humiliation. He had sacrificed his wife for this. He grabbed his car keys. He had one last, desperate, pathetic card to play. He had to find Chloe. He had to beg. Ryan drove like a man possessed, his mind racing. He went to their old apartment, the one they'd shared near Greenwich, but it was empty, a legal notice taped to the door. He didn't know the address of her Soho loft. He'd only been there once, and she'd been cagey about it. "It's just my father's old investment property," she'd said. He was desperate. He started calling her phone, but it went straight to a new, unfamiliar voicemail. "The number you have dialed is not in service." She had changed it. He drove back to the city to her old art studio, the one he'd always dismissed. It was a small, rented space in a run-down building. He pounded on the door. "Chloe! Chloe, are you in there? Please, we need to talk." The door opened, but it wasn't Chloe. It was a gruff-looking man. "She's gone, buddy. Moved out 3 days ago. Took everything." Gone where?" Ryan's voice was cracking. "How the hell should I know a professional moving crew came? The kind with guys in uniforms. They wrapped up every painting like it was the Mona Lisa. Never seen anything like it." Ryan slumped against the wall. Gone. She was truly gone. She had vanished, protected by a wall of money and power he couldn't even comprehend. He spent the next 2 days in a blur. He lost his job. His firm, catching wind of the Peterson name and its new toxic association, had downsized his position. He was now unemployed, unmoored, and his entire family's ruin was his fault. He had one last idea. The Soho Gallery. The one that had shown her work. He'd gone to her opening night, bored and scrolling on his phone in the corner. He remembered the name Galerie Helene. He showed up, unkmo and unshaven and frantic. The gallery was sleek white and silent. A chic woman at the front desk looked at him with disdain. "Can I help you?" I'm looking for Chloe. Chloe Sullivan. Or Peterson. She shows her work here." The woman's eyes narrowed. "I'm sorry, sir, we don't give out our artists' personal information." "Please, I'm her husband, Ryan Peterson." The name Peterson had the opposite effect he'd intended. The woman's face hardened. "Oh, you're Mr. Peterson. I'm afraid I have to ask you to leave." "Now?" "No. Please, you don't understand. I need to talk to her. I love her." "Security," the woman called. But before security could arrive, a new voice cut through the gallery. "That will not be necessary, Helene. I'll handle this." Chloe emerged from a back office. She looked different. She was not the same woman who had sat silently at those Sunday dinners. Her hair was pulled back. She wore no makeup but her eyes. Her eyes were clear and cold. She was dressed in a simple, expensive-looking black turtleneck and trousers. She looked like a boss. "Chloe." Ryan's voice was a pathetic croak. He rushed toward her, but stopped when she held up a hand. "Do not come any closer, Ryan," she said. Her voice didn't tremble. It was flat. "Chloe, baby, thank God. I've been looking everywhere for you. You have to listen to me. It's my family. They're ruined. My dad's business is gone. My mum was arrested. Your father, he did this. It's a nightmare." "No, Ryan," Chloe said, her voice cutting. "It's not a nightmare. It's auditing. It's consequences." But they're my family," he wailed. I had to. I was just trying to help them. I didn't know who your father was. Why didn't you tell me?" And there it was, the question that laid his betrayal bare. "Tell you what, Ryan," Chloe said, taking a step toward him. He visibly flinched. "Tell you that my father was a Megacorp CEO. Why? So you could value me differently. So I would have been worth defending at a dinner party. No. That's not... Or... Wait." Chloe continued, her eyes narrowing as a final horrifying realization dawned on her. "Or, did you know what?" he said, sweating. "This gallery, my hobby, my little paintings. You never asked how I paid for the rent on my studio. You never asked how I afforded a Soho loft before I met you. You just accepted that I was a struggling artist. But you're a finance guy, Ryan. You're all about the numbers. It never added up, did it?" She was piecing it together live. His nervousness in the coffee shop. His love for her detachment from wealth. "You knew," she whispered, the shock hitting her. "You didn't know who my father was. You didn't know the name Ethelred. But you knew I had money. You knew I had a trust fund. That's what you were after all along." Ryan's face crumbled. The lie was too big to hold. It wasn't like that. Not at first. I did love you. But then, my dad's business, this lawsuit, I just thought, if you could just... "Help, Chloe repeated. "By help, you mean you wanted me to use my family's worth to bail out your family's failures, the family that was actively, viciously trying to destroy me." They're snobs, Chloe, I know. But they're thieves, Chloe said, her voice like steel. My father's report was very thorough. Your father was building death traps. Your mother was stealing from sick children. Your sister was stealing from puppies. And you, Ryan, you're the worst of all, because you're a goddamn liar. You stood by. You let them mock me. You joined them. You called my soul a hobby. She was crying now, but they were not tears of weakness. They were tears of pure, unadulterated rage. You thought I was worthless, she choked out. You and your whole pathetic beige family. You wanted to strip me of my worth. Well, you're looking at it, Ryan. You're standing in it. Helene, what was the final sale price for Greenwich Dusk? The gallery owner, Helene, who had been watching from the desk, smiled. The original $5 million donation was returned. Helene said. Mr. Sullivan felt it was too flashy. Instead, he arranged for a private sale. It was just finalized this morning. The Museum of Modern Art has acquired it for their permanent collection. The purchase price was undisclosed. But I can tell you, Chloe, you are now one of the most significant new artists in the country. Chloe looked back at Ryan. His mouth was open, his face a mask of disbelief. My hobby, Chloe said, is now in the MoMA. My worth is that I am free of you. You are nothing, Ryan. You are a shell. You attached yourself to me for my money, and you attached yourself to your family for their name. And now, you have neither. Ryan sank to his knees. He was for the first time truly broken. Chloe, please. I'm begging you. I have nothing. I have nowhere to go. Don't do this. Chloe looked at the man sobbing on the floor of her gallery. The man she had loved. The man who had betrayed her. She felt nothing. Just that clean, quiet, empty. I'm not doing anything, Ryan, she said. You did this. You and your family. You built your own con, and my father, he just locked the door. She turned to Helene. Please have security. Show Mr. Peterson out. And call my car. My father is waiting. We have a flight to Milan for the Biennale. Yes, Chloe, Helene said. Chloe walked into the back office without a backward glance. She didn't see the security guards hauling a protesting, weeping Ryan Peterson out of the gallery and throwing him onto the Soho sidewalk. She was already looking at the blueprints for her new state-of-the-art studio in Italy, her worth finally and completely her own. The flight to Milan was on her father's jet, a Gulfstream G700 that was less of a plane and more of a flying penthouse. Chloe sat across from Nathaniel Sullivan, sipping a glass of water. They hadn't spoken much since he'd picked her up from the gallery. He was reading a financial report on his tablet, the blue light illuminating his sharp features. He was 60, but looked 50, all an energy and steel. Was that necessary? Chloe finally asked, her voice small. Nathaniel looked up, his eyes meeting hers. Was what necessary, darling? All of it. The bank, the journal, Margaret's arrest, Brenda. Everything. It was so total. Nathaniel Sullivan put his tablet down. He leaned forward, lacing his fingers. Let me tell you a story, Chloe. When you were 12, you had a passion for astronomy. You wanted a telescope, a real one. I bought you a hobbyist one. You mastered it in a week. Then I bought you a prosumer one. You mastered it in a month. By the time you were 13, you were spending your allowance on advanced physics textbooks. You weren't playing at astronomy. You were studying it. Dad, I don't see what— You are not a hobbyist, Chloe, he said, his voice firm. You have never been a hobbyist in your life. When you love something, whether it's astronomy or painting, you are total. You are all in. It is your nature. It is my nature. It is the Sullivan nature. He leaned back. These people, the Petersons, they are the worst kind of creatures. They are weak, talentless, and lazy. And they resent people like you, people with genuine passion, genuine worth. They don't build, they don't create, they just acquire. And when they can't acquire, they mock, they tear down, they try to make you as small as they are. He picked up his tablet again. What I did, Chloe, was not revenge. It was a market correction. Arthur Peterson was a fraud. Margaret Peterson was a thief. Brenda Peterson was a con artist. And Ryan Peterson was a parasite. I did not ruin them. I simply held up a mirror, and the world saw them for what they truly were. He looked at her, his expression softening. They tried to strip your worth. They called your soul a hobby. They put a $50 price tag on your self. I did not retaliate against them. I simply corrected the valuation. The $5 million was a statement. The MoMA acquisition, that was the truth. That is your worth, and it is priceless. Chloe looked at her father, this titan of industry, and saw the man who had read her physics books with her trying to keep up. The man who had quietly bought her the Soho loft, just in case. The man who in 36 hours had torn down an entire family, not out of malice, but out of a cold, protective, paternal fury. What about Ryan? She asked. What happens to him? Nathaniel shrugged. He is irrelevant. He has no money, no name, and no skills that I can see. He will drift. He is no longer your concern. Our attorneys, he said, gesturing to Graves, who was sitting silently at the front of the cabin, have already filed the annulment on the grounds of fraud. Fraud. He married you under false pretenses, Graves interjected smoothly, not looking up from his laptop. He actively misrepresented his family's financial position while simultaneously plotting to gain access to your personal trust, which he knew about. It's a clean-cut case. He won't contest it. He can't afford a lawyer. Chloe looked out the window at the clouds, a vast white ocean stretching out below them. She was 30,000 feet above the mess. She was free. Thank you, Dad, she said. Don't thank me, Nathaniel said. Just do good work. The Milan Biennale is the most important art show in the world. I expect you to dominate it. Your hobby is now your empire, Chloe. Go build it. Chloe smiled, a real, genuine smile. Okay, Dad, I will. And she did. Chloe Sullivan became the art world's new it girl, but with a difference. She had the talent, but she also had the Sullivan iron in her spine. She built her brand or opened galleries and started a foundation to support young, struggling artists, protecting them from the Margarets and Ryans of the world. As for the Petersons, they vanished. Arthur and Margaret were tied up in litigation for years. Brenda was last seen working at a car wash, and Ryan became a ghost, a footnote in a story about a woman who was underestimated. Chloe never saw him again. She was too busy high up in her new studio overlooking the canals of Venice, painting her next masterpiece, her worth self-evident, and her name finally completely her own. And just like that, Chloe stepped out of the shadow of the Petersons and into her own light, with the full power of the Sullivan name and her own incredible talent behind her. What a journey. If you were on the edge of your seat watching the Peterson empire crumble, make sure you hit that like button. It truly helps the channel. What part of their takedown was the most satisfying? Was it Arthur's business imploding? Or Margaret's entire social life evaporating after she was caught stealing from the children's fund? Let me know your favorite moment of justice in the comments below. And if you love stories where a character finds their true strength and serves up the ultimate revenge, you are going to want to subscribe and ring that notification bell. You won't want to miss the stories we have coming up next. Thank you for watching.